It's a interesting and sad story, and I think there's a sort of a Madisonian lesson to it, because I think this is one example of the passions in a Madisonian sense overcoming an assembly that otherwise made a lot of wise decisions, namely the Constitutional Assembly, the 112 members that assembled at Eidsvoll in 1814 to give Norway a constitution. They started out with an agenda set by their Constitution Committee, sort of the smaller committee that prepared the agenda for the Assembly, that said that they would work towards religious tolerance. But when it came to the design of this Article 2, what became Article 2 in the Constitution, it ended up, and I think largely because of debates that were taking place that sort of inflamed the passions, to use Madisonian language, excluding a number of religious groups from Norway. So it wasn't just that Norway ended up with an established church, but it ended up with less than full religious tolerance in 1814. I think most people wanted an established Lutheran church, but there was certainly a debate about religious tolerance. And the Constitution ended up excluding Jews and prohibiting Jews and Catholic orders from the country, excluding them from the country. And this pretty much directly after the Constitution was signed, people started having second thoughts about this, and there was a big social debate about the fairness of these exclusionary articles, and eventually they were overturned. So in the 1850s, Jews were allowed into Norway, but it actually took close to 150 years before Jesuits were allowed to live and operate in Norway, which is kind of remarkable. It was not until the 1950s that the last part of that article was repealed. So in some ways, I think the Norwegian Constitution was a remarkably egalitarian and inclusive document. In some ways, it wasn't as liberal as it was egalitarian, and I think this is probably the most egregious example of ways in which it was less liberal and I would say less Madisonian, since the First Amendment is certainly one of his major contributions to the U.S. constitutional tradition. So in that sense, this is one area where the Norwegian Constitution really diverged from the American one.